Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Postgraduate Certificate in Teaching Creative Writing information session. Before we start, I just want to inform you that this session is being recorded and it will be shared on the ICE YouTube channel, and the recording will be sent to all of you that have registered for the event after the session. My name's Lisa Hitch, and I'm an Academic Centre Coordinator at the Institute of Continuing Education, and we're also known as ICE. Today in the panel, we have Dr. Lucy Janine, who's the course director for the Postgraduate Certificate in Teaching Creative Writing. And we have Rebecca DePelle, who's a student representative and completed the course with us previously. And we also have colleagues from our enrolments team and our marketing team. Next slide, please. So this session will give you the opportunity to find out about the postgraduate courses at the Institute. In addition to our live sessions, we also have a number of video resources on our website that give you further information on the application process and funding options and opportunities. If you missed any of our sessions or are unable to attend in person or live in person, then you can watch the recordings, which will be available on our website 24 hours after each event. Links to the events and resources are shared in the chat and will also be sent to you via email after this session. So if you miss anything, don't worry, you'll be able to catch up on it later. Next slide, please. So the Institute was established 150 years ago in 1873, and we were the first university-led continuing education provider in the world. Today, we offer a wide range of courses to adult learners, including short online and residential weekend courses, international summer programs, award-bearing part-time undergraduate and postgraduate qualifications, covering a number of subject areas from archaeology to genomic medicine, for example. ICE is a place where professional networks are formed, friendships are made, and the transformative power of learning is recognised. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned earlier, in the panel, we have myself, Lisa Hitch, the Academic Centre Coordinator, Dr. Lucy Janine, the Course Director for the Postgraduate Certificate in Teaching Creative Writing, and Rebecca DePelle, who's a former student with us, along with colleagues from the enrolments team and from the marketing team. Shortly, we will take you through what you can expect from the Postgraduate Certificate in Teaching Creative Writing, including entry requirements, the teaching style, module content and assessments. You will hear from Lucy, one of our Postgraduate Certificate in Teaching Creative Writing students. And at the end of the presentation, our enrolments team will take you through what kind of support we can provide during your application. We have time reserved at the end of the session to answer your questions. So please send your questions for any of the members of the team via the Q&A box at the bottom of the screen during the presentation. So I'll now hand you over to Lucy, and she will continue with the presentation.
Thank you, Lisa, for that introduction. So yes, I'm going to talk a little bit about the course, the indicative content of it, and the structure and things like that. And as Lisa said, if you've got any questions, do pop those in the Q&A, and we'll look at those at the end. Just to sort of briefly introduce myself, I've been teaching for 20 years. I've been working with the PG Cert since I think 2019 was our first cohort. And I've been the course director of the PG Cert since 2021. I'm a short story writer and poet primarily. I also work with other forms, and that's sort of the expertise I bring to the writing side of things. I've also got an interest in researching writing pedagogy and psychology of teaching creative writing as well. And I teach on our Masters in Creative Writing and some of the other courses that we run at ICE. And when I started this PG Cert, it was with my colleague, Dr. Midge Gillis. We started the PG Cert because our own experience of learning to teach creative writing was very much sort of a baptism of fire, if you like. It was we were learning on the job in the classroom, figuring things out as we went along, and we wanted to design the course that we wished had existed for us when we were first starting out. So that was very much the ethos of the course in the beginning, and that's how we've designed it to sort of to be the course that supports the needs of all of our students in the classroom, whether they're more experienced, they've got some experience, whether they're completely new to teaching altogether. We want to provide a really good framework to give confidence and a really useful toolkit for teaching creative writing. Next slide, please. So as just to sort of extend those goals really, what the course offers is a mix of practical and theoretical approaches. We start by thinking about the theory and not just the theory of teaching creative writing, but creativity theory, sort of the broader philosophy of teaching creative writing and the history of it too. But we also want to apply that to thinking about how it works in practical settings as well. And it's very important to us to cover as many contexts as we can. So our students typically come from a range of backgrounds. Some might be already teaching, some might be primarily experienced as writers, but who want to apply that into a teaching context. It might be that you want to work with younger people, with university level, with community groups, whether that might be in industry or within the NHS or any number of different settings. We try to find ways to be able to demonstrate practical methods for teaching in these different settings. We're also, a very important part of our course is thinking about aspects of inclusion, accessibility, and decolonisation within teaching creative writing. Next slide, please. So the course is aimed at really anybody who's interested in teaching creative writing. That might be, you might be a writer who has never been in a classroom before, but are thinking that you'd like to run writing workshops, or perhaps you want to go into schools and deliver classes there, or maybe starting with a PhD and preparing for teaching at a higher education level. But we're also appealing to students who are interested, who are already teaching, perhaps in primary or secondary teaching or FE, or other forms of continuing education, and maybe the writing side of things is the less familiar part. Or potentially, if you're looking to work in the community or in the public sector, prisons, libraries, hospices, we have had students in just about as many different places as you can think of to teach creative writing, from the UN to psychotherapy. So we cover as many contexts as possible, and we welcome students from all kinds of backgrounds. Next slide, please. Okay, so I'm going to cover a little bit about the course content. Now, this is sort of it's indicative of what each module includes. But one of the things we're very proud of with our course is that there's a certain element of creating a bespoke syllabus for each cohort. So we start to figure out what each cohort is particularly interested in, and we try to deliver specific elements that are going to appeal to the needs of that particular cohort, as well as delivering core elements too. So this is sort of an example of some of the things we've been teaching in recent years. Each module continues with the same broad theme and overall content. And the first module is starting things off. It's the philosophy and context of teaching creative writing. So we look at the history of creative writing as an academic discipline. We look at the background of it, where it comes from, how it entered the educational mainstream. We look too at the concept of creativity. There's that question, can creative writing be taught? We start there. We really unpack that one, and that's kind of the springboard for everything we're thinking about. So we're thinking about different methodologies that might apply in schools, universities, communities. There might be different approaches. We look at all of those. We start right from the beginning thinking about what it means to decolonize a curriculum, how that means reconsidering reading lists, but also pedagogy, anything from maybe guest speakers to classroom layout, all sorts of elements that address that question. We also look at specific elements for different settings, so things that might be more particular in different environments. Next slide, please. So module 2, this is a slightly more practical module. We move from that core theory to thinking about how to design a creative writing course. So that brings us to elements of curriculum design. We also, in all of our modules, work in an element of education theory as well, which might be more familiar to those who have a background in teaching. But if you're perhaps coming more from a writing or a literary or alternative background, we aim to give a sort of a bedrock of core learning theory as well. So we think about that. We think about what curriculum design actually is. We think about different models of writing courses, which of course may differ as to whether you want to primarily teach one-day workshops or whether you're teaching every day in a school. We think about the pedagogical theories behind those courses, quality assurance, and those kind of questions that might apply. We also look, again, in every module at workshopping, because workshopping is a core tenet of how creative writing is taught. So we look at where workshopping has come from, but we also look at where it's going and alternative methods that really centre the writer at the heart of workshop and also aim to decolonise the workshop too. We also will touch on hybrid teaching in the post Zoom era, or I suppose we're not really post it, but inside the Zoom era, we really look at that kind of teaching as well and how that might be applicable. Next slide, please. So our final module is on assessment and feedback in creative writing. This is one of my favourite modules. I'm definitely a bit of a nerd these days when it comes to thinking about writing feedback, but we look at all different ways of how feedback might be delivered, whether that's oral or written, whether it's formal or informal, formative or summative. We really examine the different ways and the psychology of how feedback is received as well. We think about the challenges of grading a subject like creative writing, which may or may not be applicable depending on where you want to teach. But we think about how we give feedback even when a grade might not be attached. We think about feedback recipients, how to make feedback the most useful it can possibly be for the student, and to understand why sometimes it can be a tricky thing to give and receive feedback. And to that end, we also think about how to increase feedback literacy, how to develop those skills of giving and receiving feedback. And following on from the previous two modules, we will also pick up that recurrent theme of decolonisation, of inclusivity and accessibility, and also workshopping and how to sort of consider different ways of delivering workshops. Next slide, please. Okay, so the assessment for the course. So there are 3 modules, and each module has an assessment attached to it, which is a 3,000 to 4,000 word formative assignment. The first module is more essay-based. The second module asks you to design a course, a creative writing course of your choosing, and to reflect on that in a commentary. And the third essay is also more sort of discursive essay-based from a selection of questions, or you can choose your own. Those assignments are formative in that you're given indicative grades, you're given feedback that you get in writing, and you can also discuss in a tutorial. But you are also able to rework your assignment based on that feedback, because that assignment is not, that grade is not fixed for your final mark. At the end of the course, you submit a summative portfolio, which is made up of the revised versions of those 3 essays. So it's not an additional thing. It's those 3 assignments reworked as necessary and then compiled into a portfolio, which is given a summative grade at the very end of the course. Along the way, each module has something we've called a micro-teach attached to it, normally the last day of the weekend course. And those are non-assessed, they're given formative feedback, but those are a 5 or 10 minute opportunity to develop a teaching exercise and then deliver it to the group, who then gives feedback, and you get feedback from the tutors as well. And that's a really good opportunity to understand what it feels like to be in front of a classroom and to test out your potential writing exercises. And we find that they're really fun and engaging, dynamic ways to really sort of stand up there and explore what it feels like to be in the classroom. Next slide, please. And this is where I will hand you over to one of our former students who was in our cohort a couple of years ago, Rebecca DePelle. I'm delighted that you were happy to come back to talk today. Thank you so much. Over to you, Rebecca.
Hi, yes, I'm Rebecca DePelle. I graduated from the ICE course, teaching creative writing, in the summer of 2023. I have no idea, obviously, who's watching this now live or when it's recorded on YouTube, but just partly to say, if you're thinking that everyone is a sort of late 50s, middle-aged white woman, you'd be mistaken. There are some of us, but I was really impressed at the breadth of age and experience and background and heritage of the people who were on my cohort. I came at this from being a teacher and not daring to think about myself being a writer, but wanting to move on from teaching in schools to thinking about working with creative writing in the community. So I took the course while I was still working as a teacher, so that is possible. I'd stopped being a head of English. I think it'd be quite hard to be head of English and do this, but I'm sure some people could do it. So I did it while I was at school, which worked really well. You can work and do the ICE course. And I found the application really helpful. The applying was relatively straightforward, and the interview was very open and informal, and much more about whether the course would fit for you. And also within the cohort, there wasn't that kind of insane pressure to perform in some sort of particular academic way. And I would say that was similar to the course. The course itself was definitely academically rigorous and challenging, and you could pursue it in that way even further if you wanted to. And yet it also did manage to be really, really practical. The micro teachers were not new to me in that I'd been teaching for 3 decades, but thinking about obviously teaching creative writing as opposed to GCSE English literature or something like that was very different. The essays, I was very nervous about writing an academic essay. I hadn't written one since I did my MA in about 1992. My PGC, I suppose. But the feedback was amazing. I've never had that kind of engagement with my own work. I don't even think at university level, actually. So the written feedback, but also the oral feedback. I was fortunate enough to have Lucy on the course, and at that stage she was running it with another academic, but you could email them directly and the feedback was extraordinary. It was supportive but also pinpointed. So as Lucy was saying, the essays are formative in the first place, and so you do get indicative grades, and so I was able to improve mine once I'd understood more, once I got on my feet a bit more about academically what I was doing. I mean, I absolutely loved it, it turned out. I just couldn't get enough of writing academic essays, but that was new to me at the start. And yeah, there was a lot of real world experience. The course that I designed, I loved designing it, and I have actually taught it for the last 18 months. I've expanded it, but I have literally taught the course, and I'm now writing a book based on the course as a teaching manual to do with teaching creative writing. So it's been directly beneficial. And for the last 18 months, I've been working as a freelance teacher of creative writing, literally from just before the course ended, really, and still carry on. And when I've been wanting to explore different contexts, I've been able to contact the academics who delivered various elements of the course as well, which has been an amazing privilege to say, you know, you gave a lecture at ICE, you know, can I ask your opinion about, you know, ABC? And also the connections, the network you make within the people on your cohort. So we do still keep in touch. Bizarrely enough, there's still a WhatsApp group with all of us, which if that puts some of you off, don't worry. I'm sure it's not the same in every course. Maybe it is. But more to the point, professionally. So I'm professionally mentoring someone who was on the course now, who is much younger. And there are other times when people who are older than me, I've got hold of them and said, hi, can I have some of your resources? So I have definitely drunk the Kool-Aid and can only say things positive about the course. And yeah, I think it does exactly what it says on the tin, teaching creative writing. I knew about the teaching, but I didn't know about the teaching of a particular ways of thinking about creative writing. But it also was academically challenging, and at the age of 55, as I was then, I wanted to see if I could do something like that at that stage of my life, and it turned out I could. So I'm sure you would enjoy it too.
Thank you so much, Rebecca.
Okay, thanks very much, Rebecca. That's really helpful, and thank you, Lucy. So how to apply? As part of the application process, you'll be required to provide your CV and a personal statement. Your personal statement, as we say, is your opportunity to tell us about your teaching and your learning experience, your goals as a teacher of creative writing, and your interest in the course. So this helps with the shortlisting process, and kind of, so your personal statement, you should kind of have that in mind when you're writing it. Applications for the course close on the 5th of June, and we would aim to shortlist before then and hold the interviews in sort of late June, early July. They're usually by remote software, unless we do some in person, but I would say more recently we have been doing them sort of via Zoom, just for the location of students and just to make it much more easier and accessible. But if you have any questions around the application process, then our enrolments team, will be able to help you. So no question is a daft question. Reach out and we will be there to help you. Next slide, please, Matt. So as I said, our enrolments team are able to help you with any inquiries about this course. Kate's answering the questions in the Q&A for us this evening, and Kate and her team can help you sort of make sure that this course is right for you, provide advice on the eligibility requirements and the application process. So if you haven't got around to putting a question in the chat, then please do, or you can scan the QR code and that will take you to our inquiry form. Or if you have any questions, you can email them using questions@ice.cam.ac.uk. But don't worry if you don't get it now, it will be in the chat, and as I say, we'll email the slides around to everybody afterwards and you can pick it up from there. Next slide, please. So this is your opportunity to answer any questions. If you'd like to start popping them in, we will get on with those. But I have a couple, so I'll start them off and we'll take it from there. But please don't be shy, please pop your questions in. Okay, so one for you, I think, Lucy. I don't have an undergraduate degree in the subject, but I have relevant work experience. Will I get an interview?
Well, we have lots of students every year who have an undergraduate degree in a completely different subject, or not an undergraduate degree at all, but have been, have relevant experience. So what I would say is put all of that into your personal statement, all of that, giving that sense of your interest in teaching, what experience you have, if you do have experience, or why it is that you're interested in moving into this field of teaching creative writing, and then based on the application, then it's certainly not a barrier to getting an interview at all. It's, we look at all aspects of the application form, but what I would say is that every year we have a cohort where the backgrounds in terms of teaching experience or writing experience are incredibly varied, as Rebecca mentioned. Some people have been teaching for 30 years, other people have never taught, and that's absolutely fine. And some people are just maybe graduating from a master's degree, say, in creative writing, and they're just at the very cusp of that, both as writers and as teachers, and at the cusp of moving into a different career. And we're really excited to receive applications if you're at that stage as well. So I would say, whatever your background, as long as you've got an interest in teaching creative writing, put it all into your application form, tell us about it, and we'd love to hear from you.
Lovely, thanks very much, Lucy. Another quick question, probably related to what you've just said, and I think I mentioned it. How are the selection interviews conducted? So I will ask, so how the interviews conducted. So we did touch on it briefly. Most of the interviews will be via Zoom. We perhaps will be able to do some in person. It very much depends on sort of Lucy's availability and things like that. But generally, I would say that as a rule of thumb, the interviews are going to be on Zoom. So don't worry about having to come up to Cambridge to take time off work or anything like that. We will fit in as best as we can around your availability.
Yep.
Okay. Another quick question. What kind of students study on your course?
Oh, well, we have had such a range of students studying on the course. This will be cohort 7, I think, won't it, Lisa, that we'd be moving into.
Yeah, I think so.
So thinking of across the years, and as Rebecca mentioned, it's an incredibly diverse cohort each year in terms of, you know, the backgrounds for how students have entered into writing or teaching, often actually coming from maybe scientific backgrounds and working maybe in law or medicine or seemingly unrelated subjects, but moving towards teaching creative writing. We have students from all over the world as well. So the currently in our cohort, we have a student from Bermuda, from Canada, from the Emirates. There's students from all over the place come along to Madingley Hall. We have students who, as I mentioned before, have only recently graduated and are very much at the start of their journey, but we have students who might have 4 published novels and are very experienced and are taking their writing classes to festivals, and they're running freelance workshops, and they're wanting to gain new skills. We've also had a number of students who are already working in higher education as creative writing lecturers, but what they want to do is to start to maybe reevaluate their practice, or to you know, perhaps like me, initially started teaching by working things out as you go along, and actually wanting to have that opportunity to examine that practice, to understand the particular techniques that you're bringing to the classroom, or the particular theoretical perspectives you're actually applying, and actually wanting to sort of name some of those and to explore them in a more intentional way. So each year it's a really different mix. We also tend to get a very broad mix of genres of writing that people are interested in working with as well. So it might be anything from screenwriting to poetry, fiction and non-fiction. We cover all of it, and we aim to support every individual student in teaching in the particular context or setting they want to move into. And a lot of what we offer is transferable. There's core elements that doesn't matter what your intended destination is or what your background might be, it's going to be transferable. But then we also have more specialized paths that will be particularly useful in different areas as well. And of course, you get to use your micro teach to really hone that down. And you can also use the assignments to really explore those aspects as well. So it's always a great delight to me each year to see what the cohort's going to bring. It's always more wide-reaching than I could ever imagine, really. And I think because of that, it means that students can actually share their own experience, their best practice, the challenges they've experienced. So there's a lot of learning from your peers, as well as from the core tutors and the guest lectures that we have on the course as well.
Lovely, thanks very much, Lucy. So another quick question, what is a typical class size?
We currently have 15, I think. For some reason, we've had 13 has been our number for many years. It's a strange strange thing that it's kind of been 13, and it's been lucky for us. We like to keep the class sizes relatively small because it is quite a bespoke course. But each year it will depend on who's interested in the course and who takes up their offers and things like that. So I'd say typical might be around sort of 15, 16, but it could go either side of that.
Lovely, thank you. Then there's another quick question, which I will take. So what happens if I can't submit an assignment on time? So that's not a problem. We appreciate that life gets in the way of courses sometimes. So please don't panic if you were on the course and ever thought that you weren't going to be able to submit on time. So we have an extension process. You can apply for a 7-day extension for which we don't require any evidence. That's just a self-certified. You apply for 7 days. You would just need to let your course tutor know. So you'd need to let Lucy know that you were doing that. and then that's approved by sort of myself and my academic, my sort of administrative team. If you needed longer than 7 days, you can apply for 2 weeks or up to 3 weeks. But for 2-week and 3-week extensions, we do require supporting evidence. So we would need to see something along those lines. But equally, if you have additional support needs, we would always recommend that our students get in touch with our Accessibility and Disability Resource Centre. And if there are specific adjustments that you need, they will recommend them. And most often they recommend that you have an automatic extension. So you would automatically be given, for example, another 2 weeks on any published deadlines. So say if you're unable to submit, as long as you let us know, that's not a problem. So please don't worry about something like that. We can deal with that when the time comes. Okay. A question for you, Lucy. Would you be leading our lectures?
Yeah.
So I'm currently course directing the PG Cert, and I am my partner in crime in this is currently Patricia Debney, who is one of our other creative writing tutors at ICE. So we team teach, we're there pretty much in every single class, and we teach together and also lead some classes separately for all of the core elements. We also curate a very particular program of guest speakers as well, who will speak to more specific areas relating to their own aspects of expertise. So, for example, we've had a guest lecturer who has worked in teaching creative writing as part of end-of-life care. So that's a very particular field, and she does a wonderful, very moving guest lecture on that. We're also delighted to be able to have former students return to share what they have been doing post the course and to be able to deliver classes. We've had a recent student return to talk about hybrid literature and how you might teach more interdisciplinary work. So so we have, it's a sort of a balance of myself and my colleague Patricia, who are there all the time, sometimes heading up the courses, heading up the lectures, and our specialist guest lectures as well. You do have a tutor. I didn't mention this actually in the slides, but each student is given a personal tutor, and that's like normally myself or Patricia Debney, and your tutor would be giving you the formative feedback on your assignments. They're also your go-to person if you have anything you want to discuss, whether that's to do with the course or maybe just life generally, you need a bit of support, or if you want an extension, you might want to go to your personal tutor first to talk about that. And you do have a tutorial after every module. We hold those by Zoom. We found after COVID that postponing the tutorials until everyone had gone back home after the residencies was quite useful, because it meant you had a chance to digest everything that you'd learned and to think about the assignments. So that tutorial happens by Zoom after the residential modules at Madingley Hall, and that would be with your tutor. So that would be myself, or it would be potentially with Patricia alternatively. So yes, we also work in a lot of our other tutors from the creative writing courses at ICE. They often come and deliver classes for us as well. So you do get access to a range of different tutors, but I am there all the time for each module.
Okay, and I think the last question that we'll take now was, can I apply for funding for this course? So I'll take that one. So directly funding, we have a first story bursary for this course, and we hope to be able to offer that again for this incoming cohort. Information will be on our website. So if you have a look at our website and on the funding opportunities and bursaries, you will see information there. There are also postgraduate loans available sort of to students, and you would have to check the UK government websites for those, which will give you information on kind of funding, external funding opportunities. But otherwise, that is kind of all we have. There's nothing else directly. lots of students do kind of search for funding, and will find funding in obscure places that we would have never have thought of. So don't be deterred if you're willing to put a search into it. You can often find there's random little funding opportunities out there for teaching creative writing and for creative writing students. So do have a look and see what you can find yourself. So I think that will probably be it. We've done most of the questions. So I hope you found the information session helpful. If, as we say, if you've got any questions, if we haven't covered anything tonight, then please do get in touch with us. But otherwise, yeah, thank you very much for coming along. I hope you found this information session helpful, and we hopefully look forward to seeing you as a student in the future.